Good morning. My name is Annette Allen. I am a business development specialist with the value added branch of Manitoba Agriculture. It's my pleasure today to welcome you to our supply chain webinar, supply chains and what they mean to your food business. I would like to start this webinar with a land acknowledgement. We recognize that Manitoba is on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota Oyate, the Nessalan, and the Nehethawak peoples. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. It is my pleasure today to introduce today's speaker, Reid with Supply Chain Manitoba. Take it away, Rick.
Thank you, Annette. Hello, everyone. My name is Reid. I'm CEO for the Manitoba Institute of Supply Chain Canada. We are an association of supply chain professionals from coast to coast to coast. I have a background in supply chain management of over 25 years. In that time, I've worked both for private and public organizations, although most of my career was spent in the private sector in the manufacturing environment. I've worked in many industries over the years, everything from building trailers to noise control systems to, camping and outdoor equipment, eyeglasses, healthcare. But what I've learned is over my years is that the one common thread among any industry and it's critical to their success is the effectiveness of their supply chains. And it is the one area where many businesses, particularly small and medium enterprises, don't invest enough time and energy into developing to help ensure their future and ensured success. So I wanted to take today, and I'm going to go through a lot of information. I want to take today to talk a little bit about supply chain and how it impacts your industry and how it may help your industry by just making some adjustments. One thing that I do want to share is right off the bat is an excerpt from a Kearney report that reflects a little bit on the industry that you guys are in. Kearney report is from 2022, so it's a little old, but I still think it's still relevant. But it talks about the inefficiency of supply chains within the CPG industry. Now, CPG includes food and beverage, alcohol, household, beauty, personal care companies, a lot of the products that people on this webinar work in or operate in. And the fact is that inefficient supply chains, which were exposed as we saw during COVID, just how fragile and delicate they are, are a risk to organizations being able to move forward. Not only just in, being able to stay in business and be profitable, but to grow and to be successful and to be a growing concern for years to come. And this is where I want to talk a little bit about what this means to your business, maybe a different way of looking at how supply chains operate within your business and how you might be able to take a look at operating a little bit differently to help get a better result. Takeaways today, pretty straightforward. I want you to, have a takeaway understanding how supply chain management itself, what it is, and the importance to your business. I want you to understand the benefits of optimizing and finding ways to make your supply chain more efficient and what it can do for your bottom line and your growing and your overall success. I'll talk a little about the importance of a supply chain strategy and what the optimization process might look like, some of the steps you may take. I also want to talk about new considerations that are coming in, particularly circular economy. It may be a term you might be familiar with, it might not be, but it is something that's on the horizon that can be an opportunity for your organization in many ways, and we'll talk a little bit about it. And I'm going to give you some specific examples of how supply chain can actually contribute to the bottom line of your organization. Because it's not always just about the person in the corner cutting the purchase orders and spending your money. It's about a function within your organization that does a better job of managing the spend of that money, managing those resources within your organization to get you the most effective and profitable outcome possible. So what is supply chain management? Now, this may be redundant, some may know, some may not. But basically, in a nutshell, it's how you deliver your goods and services to your customers. It's how you can sell whatever you want. But if you're not able to deliver on it, which is your supply chain, you're not going to be successful. So it's how you deliver your goods and services. It's how you deliver value to your customers. And the better you are at delivering value to your customers, the more likely they're going to repeat, the more likely that they're going to pay, the price you need. It's going to protect you from margins. It's going to, margin creep going down. It's going to help you in many different ways. It has 4 primary functions. It's very simplified, but it really comes down into sourcing, procurement, transportation, and warehousing. You find it, you buy it, you move it, you store it. That's really what it's all about. The key is, though, is how well do those functions work together? How well are they integrated? How well are they integrated within the other aspects of your business? Your finance department, your sales department, your operations, your shipping, whatever it happens to be. How well do all these disciplines within your organization work together? And that's the key to a world-class supply chain. It involves everything, all the activities, upstream and down, from point of origin to point of consumption. It includes information flows from your suppliers, from your customers. It involves handoffs of responsibility to people. Everything is in your supply chain. And every time somebody touches something, there's a cost, either time or money associated with it. So the question becomes, how much of that do you need and how much do you not? And who's managing that process to make sure that you're eliminating those steps that don't add any value to your process? Now, this is a simplified supply chain, very, very simple. It simply shows you where you might be on it. It shows your tier 1 suppliers, which is your immediate suppliers that you deal with. On average, most companies deal with approximately 100 or so, anywhere from 80 to 100, maybe a little more, tier 1 suppliers. And they might be everything from your strategically critical, right? Those, 4 or 5 suppliers that are critical to the success of your business, to an office supply company that provides paper. And then it shows the tier 2 suppliers, which is your suppliers' suppliers and how their impact. And then their suppliers after that, and it would continue along, up that food chain. And then it shows your customers. It may be direct, like this diagram shows. It might be, you might send out to an intermediary that goes to your end customers. Who knows? Every supply chain is a little bit different. But the key is, when you look at this, the complexity that this becomes, if you take this from 3 tier 1 suppliers to 100 tier 1 suppliers, and then each one of those has 80 to 100, you start to see where the complexity comes in. And every one of those people that's in that chain, that's inefficient, that charges you too much, that is not effective in what they do, costs you time and money. So the question is, how do you manage this? How do you manage this? How do you manage your suppliers? Because sometimes your customers. Your customers are the ones that cause the inefficiency on how they order, what they order. Maybe you shouldn't be doing business with some of them, right? Because they don't fit with your core competencies of your business. Characteristics of what would be considered a world-class supply chain management organization are here, and there's many of them. Is supply chain is a priority because the world's largest companies in the world, right? Whether it be Boeing or New Flyer or any of those, just even locally, they see it as a priority because they understand the importance of a supply chain that's consistent, predictable, cost-effective, and can get the products where they need it to at the right time, in the right quantity, and the right quality, all those sort of things. They focus on a lot of that. Supply chain is part of your senior management decision team. They're there. They're bringing that outside perspective. You have to remember, supply chain is your connection to the outside world from your 4 walls. They're the ones that are connected with suppliers to understand what's happening with shortages. What are the challenges here? What's going on with tariffs in this case? What's coming up with our new administration in the States? These are the people that come in that have information that are critical to the decision-making within that business. Cost management, obviously. The importance is to spend money effectively. Supply chain is usually the largest expenditure for an organization, and if it isn't, it's labor. Those are the two largest expenditures of an organization, right? And sometimes they flip depending on what your organization is. The question becomes, who is actually managing the spend as effectively as possible? Strong information and knowledge management. Knowledge is key. If you don't know about it, bad things happen. It's what you don't know that's going to come back and bite you. So basically having strong information, understanding what's happening, when it's happening, leading indicators, all those kind of things are critical to making good business decisions. Because at the end of the day, even though I'm talking about supply chain management, the best supply chain management decision is the best business decision. That's what you're wanting your people to do. Flexible and scalable, can ramp up when things are good, can ramp down when things are bad to help save money. Resilience, that's how you can handle that's basically how you handle the unexpected. When you all of a sudden get bumped up, how long does it take you to recover when you get big orders and you have to recover? Or something falls out, how can you turn a tap off so that you're not spending bad, good money after bad? Integrated, as I talked about, efficiency, lean driven, eliminating waste, steps that don't add any value. The biggest one, though, is on a supply chain is how can you learn faster and adapt quicker? That's really what this is about. Business changes. You guys are in a very dynamic industry, and things are changing all the time. The question is, what can you learn and how can you adapt faster than your competitors so you can take advantage of opportunities, whether it be growth opportunities, whether it be taking advantage of lower costs, whether it be new markets, whatever it happens to be. But how can you learn faster, adapt quicker, and can your supply chain keep up to what you're trying to do? Because you can sell everything in the world, but if you can't deliver, you're not going to be in business very long. At the end of the day, this is why. I'm going to be talking a little bit, a bunch of things, but really at the end of the day, why should you be focusing on your supply chain? Why should you be making it a priority within your business, even if you're a small, medium enterprise? And it's because of this competitive advantage. If you can do it better, faster, cheaper than your competitors, you have an advantage, right? You can sell for less when somebody tries to cut the margins. You can handle it because your cost structure is more competitive than anybody else, right? You have a supply assurance. You have more reliable suppliers. You have that assurance of product so that it's available for when you need it. So you're not on allocation like what happened to many people during COVID, because you have good partners. You have a supply chain that's focused on your customers, not just you and your four walls. You have solid partners. This is what the goal is to be better than everybody else. And so that you can handle the ups. When the ups come, you can take advantage of that and make more money or grow more than you ever dreamed. Or in the bad times, you're able to weather it, unlike other people, because your costs are in line and you're efficient and you're productive, more productive than the people you're in business with or you're in competition with. Again, not going to go with these. These are pretty much make sense. But these are the results. I talked about the characteristics earlier about what a world-class supply chain looks like, right? And those characteristics that make it up. Competitive advantage is the goal. This is how you measure the result. And this is what puts you on that track to the growth that you want, to the profitability that you want, to the opportunities that you want. Because you're able to take advantage of these things. These things put you in the best possible position. So how does it work? Well, the first question I would ask any of you that are on this call is, do you actually have a supply chain strategy? Most organizations don't. They have a corporate strategy, right? They want to be a low-cost provider, or they want to, be known for quality, or they want to, whatever it happens to be. But they don't have a supply chain strategy they don't develop a supply chain strategy that helps them get to that point. If you're about quality, I worked for a trailer company we used to get a premium for our trailers. They were considered to be the best quality trailers on the market. We used to get a premium on it for the price. So the strategy wasn't to go out and find ways that I could cut the costs, to the bone, to find the cheapest possible lights or the cheapest possible tires. It was about, how do I get the best possible value? How do I maximize the quality for the best possible price? Because my strategy had to support the corporate strategy, which was, how do I produce the best possible trailer to maintain the premium that we used to get for our trailers, right? And getting cheap products wasn't consistent with that. So you need to have a strategy that's consistent with the goals of the company. And you need somebody to manage that strategy and execute it to make sure that you can achieve your corporate goals. The other one is a constant state of continuous improvement. I'm just going to skip back to this thing for a sec here. When you look at this, process, there's a weak link in here. And that continuous analysis is, you're going to find, where is that weak link? And this might be in your supply chain with your suppliers. This might be your internal processes within your four walls. But the question is, where is the weak link? Identify the weak link, take steps to address it, analyze again, find the next weak link. Because as soon as you fix a weak link, something else becomes a weak link. And you need to have that constant focus on continuous improvement. That relentless focus on, how do I eliminate waste within that waste and efficiency within my process and within my supply chain, to ensure that I have the most effective and profitable, organization possible. And that's what this is. And most organizations do not invest the time to have that process be in there all the time, constantly. What adds value? What doesn't? If it doesn't add value, why am I doing it? How do I eliminate it? Right? This is one of the keys to that excellence going forward, is having somebody that's constantly on this for you. And you focus, as I said, on integration, information sharing internally, externally. If I'm looking at a process, finance is going to want to spend less money, but operations might want you to spend money on better quality because they're spending more time on rework and it's impacting productivity. You need to look at that holistic approach, right? Somebody needs to be looking at that on a constant basis, continuously tweaking. And that's the key to supply chain management. As I said, it's not just about somebody going out and cutting a purchase order. It's about somebody looking at how you acquire goods and how they flow through your process to get to the end, where you can profitably go sell those things consistently, predictably to your customers. Communication. It's critical. Supply chains fail when communication's weak, when people don't talk to each other. It's you and your suppliers. It's you and your customers. It's, your people within your four walls. You need good channels of communication, because if you don't know there's something wrong, it can't be addressed. And the problem is that you end up in situations where, when people aren't communicating and there isn't information sharing or there aren't measurements, what happens is your money, your resources are directed in the wrong way. You end up doing things twice, reworks, stuff gets thrown out. It may expire because, you had all this and people didn't rotate right? And you didn't move things around to get something into the production line faster so they get used up. You couldn't work with suppliers to trade something out. Communication is critical. Constant measurement's critical, right? Priority on leading indicators. How do you measure to find those leading indicators that, when I see this is going to happen, so I can get ahead of the curve? So instead of fighting fires and chasing, I'm actually ahead and being proactive and dealing with it before it becomes a problem. And investing in your supply chains. Too often, and this is not uncommon with small, medium enterprises, it's usually somebody who's does a whole bunch of functions and cuts the purchase orders at the same time. But they don't really do, they're not really given the training or the ability to go do analysis of processes. They're not really trained to how to do proper forecasts. They're not trained in inventory management. They're not trained in, a whole bunch of those things. And what happens is you get poorer results as a result. You don't get the same outcomes. You don't get the best optimal outcomes because your people don't have the tools, knowledge, or experience to improve upon them. So investment is key. Give people the tools to do a good job, right? And you're going to see better results. So what are some of the elements? Well, as I said before, and I kind of when I went back to the map, structure, right? What does your structure look like? Do you have a network? Like, what's your product flows? Are they good? Are they inefficient? Do you have bottlenecks? Do you have good forecasting? Are you loading up where you're having truckloads come in when partial truckload would make more sense? What are the structures? Are people talking to each other? Are you coordinating efforts? That all comes into your structure. Planning, same thing. Balancing supply and demand, coordinating your resources, making sure information and people know what to do and when. Use of Kanbans, that all helps. Execution, it's back to tools, it's back to systems, it's the activities. We had systems where, you have a situation where, we used to rely on people, walking around, once a day to go pick stuff, to pick up and decide to order. We changed to Kanban and it got easier, right? Kanban is just simply a card system that has min maxes that made things more efficient. You want to look at all of these things. What helps you be more efficient? What eliminates the need for people to have to do extra steps? Because, when you have a welder that's all of a sudden going down to the stockroom to go pick up welding tips instead of having available at his workstation when he has to replace them, that's the difference. I had a situation, we were in the trailer company that we had guys that on welding stations that would walk an average of 2-3 miles a month, just walking from their station to the storeroom to get welding tips. So we put them right at their stations instead, so that they actually added value more. They actually spent more time welding than walking. Other activities, cost optimization, analysis. How do I take a look at what am I doing? Am I buying the right things? Can I buy better? Can I consolidate? Right? How do I make sure that I maximize my dollars? Inventory, same thing. How do I have the right levels? How do I make sure that I'm not tripping over stuff, that I don't need? How am I not making sure I'm not overbuying, product? How am I not risking obsolescence or expiring product because I bought too much? Again, network optimization, reliability, these things we talk about here. How do I choose better suppliers? How can suppliers be part of helping me become more efficient? Right? How can I use them to deliver as needed instead of just dumping a bunch of stuff on me? How can I work with my customers a little bit better? So these things all come into it as well. And then we get into new considerations. Circular economy might be a new concept for some of you. Circular economy has been around for a while, and people think, well, I recycle, I put, my aluminum cans or I recycle my paper. And yeah, that's an aspect of it. But it comes back to, how do I eliminate waste and pollution? Right? And part of that might be in my packaging. How do I, as a company, how do I make better decisions on the packaging I use so that when the packaging is done, when the end customer is done with it, that package is more easily recycled and reintroduced back in the supply chain somewhere, so it doesn't end up in a landfill? How does the waste products from my production, right? Instead of me putting it into a bin where I'm paying tippage and there's a cost for me to take it to a landfill, how can I maybe find somebody where I can redirect it somewhere, right? Where it can be used for something else, right? And it could be reintroduced into supply chain somewhere else, either as energy or for a different type of product. It doesn't matter. But what happens is it starts eliminating your costs because you're redirecting it someplace other than a landfill. And the key is to keep products in there longer. You do that by design. You keep your own equipment, preventative maintenance, all those sort of things. And it helps regenerate nature. And the reason why this is something that's kind of new and you need to start thinking about it is that regulation is coming. Governments will start taxing pollution. You see it now with carbon tax. The federal government and the carbon tax. That's an example of the type of regulation and things that are going to come. And if you're producing goods in a way that's not environmentally friendly, there's a good chance in the near future, you're going to start to see regulations that are going to start adding cost to your operations if you continue to produce in a way that's not environmentally more friendly. But on the flip side, you can help mitigate those costs by adjusting how you do business. How do you deal with your waste products? How do you find ways to divert them? Right. And the nice thing is, not only does it provide an immediate cost saving because you're not sending stuff to a landfill where you're paying tippage, but you may actually find a way to turn some of this into cost recovery where you actually get money for some of the products that you're sending elsewhere. Because your garbage might be somebody else's input to a process that they're willing to pay for. So this becomes part of that big picture of what am I producing and where can I send it to help my business? Now, I've thrown a lot at you guys here, and it's all very, basic, but the key is, at the end of the day, for your businesses, is you need to take a step back. You have to have a look at how do I operate? And do I really understand how I operate? How do I make the process visible? How do I make my system visible? How do I map it so that I can see what activities are happening and where they are? And so that I can do analysis as to which ones actually add value, which ones duplicate, which ones are costing me time and money. How do I eliminate them? How do I refine that process? And how do I have somebody capable of being able to go do that? That's the first step. And then they get into the other steps in terms of your analysis and your forecast. There's a whole bunch of things that we can get into that I don't have time for today. But the first step is, where's my starting point? How efficient am I? How good am I? Am I as good as I think I am? Or am I kind of fooling myself a little bit? Because I don't really know all the different things that are happening within my four walls or within my supply chain. But the key is, and I wanted to share some examples, and they're not all examples from your industry, but as somebody who worked 25 years in many industries, I can tell you this, fundamentally, it's the same. The process I'm talking about doesn't matter what industry you're in. It's the same thing. Analysis, identify current state, identify opportunities, make changes, do them, analyze again, rinse and repeat, eliminate waste, make sure that you're doing things efficiently and as productively as possible. Here's an example of where some of this is going to help add to your bottom line, because you can go out. I know that many of you guys are facing challenges with the rising costs, particularly fuel costs right now. Is a perfect example. And you're looking at how do I reduce costs? And I'm going out trying to negotiate with these people to reduce. But I'll tell you one thing that I do know. You need to focus on that. But the question becomes, how do you make your process more efficient? How do you bring more predictability to what you're doing? Your process and what you need so that you know what you need to go negotiate. You're more solid on what you're negotiating, on what that is. You know what you need, you know what the hot buttons are, you know what you have to get. You can adjust what you're doing to minimize those things that drive costs. Minimize how many times I have to use freight, for example, consolidate loads, as an example. But the question becomes, when you're looking at this is an example right here. This is from optical business. I worked for a national optical chain, King Optical Group. It used to own all the Shoppers optical stores, Shorty's Opticals down east. They were all bought by Italian company a few years back. But when they were hired me, they had 75 stores across the country. They were doing about $65 million in sales. And they were having trouble with their supply chain. They had international supply chains, 60 to 180 day lead times. They had minimum orders of 25 to 150 pieces per color on the frames. They had $9.2 million worth of inventory in their system, and most of it was junk, not very fashionable, not sellable. And over 18 months, my team and I were able to take that 9.2 million down to 4.9 million. We were able to convert that to cash. And as everybody knows in business, cash is king. Cash flow is everything. And they had 9.2 million locked up that was useless, and we were able to convert most of that into cash over 18 months. The other thing we had in that, and we talk about process efficiencies, is that when I started, I had 5 buyers that were responsible for doing all the orders for those 75 stores. And it was a very labor intensive process. And it took those 5 people each, a full day to do. So 40 man hours roughly for them to process the 600 or 700 orders a day that we had to do, where they would come in, they'd have to key punch them, consolidate them, fax them off to suppliers, get confirmations, match confirmations, do this, file them, all that sort of thing. It was a mess. But during that same period of time, over that 18 months, I was able to take that and reduce it from 5 people at 40 man hours to 2 people in less than 8, simply by taking technology, right? And using technology and improving processes and bringing systems together to be able to redirect those people, some of those people to other areas to help find other opportunities to create value and to create savings and have fewer people actually do the administration of managing those special orders. And in turn, that was about $108,000 a year. I was able to redirect somewhere that got me tenfold that, probably in savings. Other examples. I don't know if anybody knows what an empty lift assist is, but basically if you see a truck driving down the road with pulling a trailer and you see the wheels lifted up, that's called an empty lift assist. When the trailers are empty, the lift brings up the tires, helps save wear and tear, and it saves money because it saves wear and tear on the equipment. So we had a situation where we were paying around $3,600 each for these double sets. And we found out that we were paying probably a little bit more from a single source supplier. And what happened was when we tried to go to that supplier, we didn't have a whole lot of success. And so we investigated alternatives. And we found out that a lot of the parts in these things all came from one supplier because we had the parts department. And so we went to that company. We knew that they built other harnesses and other equipment for bus manufacturers and coach manufacturers. So we went to them and said, hey, we'd like you to build one of these things for us. And they came up with a prototype that, was $1,700 and looked better and worked better than the one we had. Right. So right off the bat, just simply by having somebody go investigate alternatives and options, we were able to save about $1,900 a unit, and it ended up being just under $1 million a year because we used them on almost every truck that we produced. We produced 25 trucks a month, 25 trucks a week. So that's an opportunity, and that's earnings before taxes. That goes right to your bottom line. Didn't have to sell the trailer, didn't have to do the welding and put everything together, didn't have to do any of that. A straight up savings that just by buying better, we're able to put on the bottom line. Process efficiencies, a couple more examples. We had a situation where we had a gentleman that, one of the guys, the installers, is making roughly $30 an hour, used to spend 45 minutes per trailer putting Teflon tape on fastenings and things for the air brakes, right? Little fasteners. Used to put Teflon tape on them. Used to sit there at a table for 45 minutes for every trailer, 25 trailers a week. So what did we do? We ended up finding a way that our supplier, for fractions of a cent, would have them all taped and they would be sent to us. Saved us about $25,000 a year, where instead of that person sitting, putting tape on fittings, he was actually doing what added value, what the customer wanted to pay for, which was install air brakes. Same process is that we had all the other things. There's a whole bunch of parts that come into it, but we actually put together kits, for that, where they would go get a bunch of stuff, throw in a box, bring it, and they'd be rooting through a box trying to do something. We improved the speed in which we could install air brakes because we actually put kits together by the model of the trailer, where you could go get the box, open the box, and the first thing went on the trailer was on top, and it was all in order. Every time you took it out, it was the next thing on, was the next thing in the box. And it improved the efficiency and it saved us about $35,000 a year just in the installation process time. improved our productivity. Again, benefits of supply chain. This is a big one, and this comes back and it kind of relates to, as I said, about, the savings, before, but it's called profit leverage effect. And this is something that a lot of people don't really understand fully what it means and how this contributes to the success of your business. If you have somebody focusing on supply chain within your organization and looking for all the opportunities to save money, or find efficiencies. And basically, it translates the impact of savings equivalent to the same effort that would be to get the same amount of profit impact. And basically, what it means is that the savings from your supply chain have a greater impact than the dollar that it takes or the work it takes to get your same amount of increased sales. So here's another example, and this is back to my optical days. But what we did was, one of the things we did is we used to buy from many, many different sunglass companies, fluorescent sunglass lens companies. And so we consolidated with one company. And the savings over the first year were around $117,000. On a $65 million company, yeah, okay, it's nice. I mean, everybody will take it. It's a lot of money, but they go, okay, well, that's nice. Well, at the time, the average sale, it's not anymore. People would probably love that. At the time, an average sale for us, this is early 2000s, was $326. And after everything was out, we netted out at $82. That was after all said and done, $82 per sale. And the company, not sure where this came from, but basically the organization from the sales side, their idea of success was they wanted to have one extra sale per store per quarter. So 75 stores, 75 extra sales per quarter. That's how they measured it. They got that. That was a good quarter. So 75 extra sales per quarter times 4 quarters, that's an extra 300 sales per year. Okay, 300 extra sales per year times $82 because that's what we netted out at. So basically that was an extra $24,600 in profit. And you have to remember, anybody who has glasses, so those sales isn't just simply as somebody walking in and grabbing it. It's see the eye doctor. They come in, they got to go find the right frame that they want. It takes a couple hours. Then they got to get the prescription, and then it's got to get, either cut, or it's got to be ground, or it's got to be manufactured. Then it comes back, and then it's coated, all that sort of thing. And then they're ready to go. The person comes in, and there's an hour or two where they get fitted, and they do all that stuff. And then there's all the stuff that goes out where they finish the sale. So there's a lot of work that goes into that, right? Those extra 300 sales. But when you take the $117,000 that we saved and you divide that by 82, the savings on that, just on that supply chain initiative to consolidate those lenses, to get a better quality one and to get a better deal, is the equivalent of 1,426 sales. So all the work you need to do to get 300 more, right? Or a supply chain that finds efficiencies, that gets you that lower cost or consolidates, does those things to capture more value for you, is the equivalent in this case to 1,426. Even if I doubled that, even if I said it was 2 sales per store, 600 sales per year is 50,000, bucks. Still doesn't get to the savings on consolidated lenses. So the question becomes, from your point of view, what is it you would rather have? A contribution to bottom line that's equivalent to 1,426 sales versus 300, or 117,000 bucks, $117,000 earnings before taxes, interest and taxes, or 24, and the work that's associated with it. That's the power that supply chains can bring. And I know that these are examples from other industries, but the fact is, it says the same regardless of whatever industry that you happen to be in. It could be in your packaging. It could be in your raw materials. It could be in your equipment. It could be in your office supply. It doesn't matter. The fact is that more effective supply chain management will contribute to your bottom line. It will contribute to your success. It will contribute to your growth. The question is, are you willing to make that adjustment like it did from the Kearney report? Are you one of the companies willing to make an adjustment to become more agile, to optimize your supply chains so that you can take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you? And how do you not only take advantage of opportunities, but also mitigate the risks that are in front of you as well, whether it be interprovincial boundaries, trying to sell more across Canada, or if you're trying to get into the States, how to mitigate the damage that some of this upcoming trade actions that the United States may bring about, has an impact on your business. The way to start is engage in an analysis of your supply chain. Take a look. What's your starting point? If you need help, we're certainly available to help. You can certainly give us a call and we can help you get started on the right path with that. But it's really quite simple. It's a commitment to one. We're going to get better. What's our starting point? What has to change? Make the change, measure again, rinse and repeat constantly. Having somebody that one is responsible for it, that has the tools, the knowledge, and the experience to be able to go do it, who's constantly working for you to make you more profitable and successful every day. Because as a principal, because many of you on this call may be the principals of your organizations, you've been everything from chief cook and bottle washer to that organization. The salesperson, the strategic leader, the finance person, whatever, the manufacturer, it doesn't matter. The fact is that when it gets big, you get somebody to look after your finances. Right? When you get going, you get somebody to do manufacturing. The question is getting somebody to manage your supply chain and help integrate and help get everybody pulling that rope in the same direction within your organization and outside is going to help you be more successful. So with that, we're about 45 minutes. I've thrown a lot at you. I hope I've covered off a lot of things. I'd be certainly happy if somebody wants to throw any questions in chat or anything else. But thank you for Annette and Karen and Jeff and the team for having me come speak. We do have another session that's going to be coming up that's going to talk about our competency benchmarking tool in a couple of weeks. And it's something else that might help you as you want to take a look at how to evaluate your team and where some of the needs might be to help you be more effective in managing your supply chains.
Great. If anybody has any questions, they can type them into the Q&A at the bottom toolbar of their screen. And I can invite Jeff on if Jeff has anything he'd like to say in closing remarks or any other questions.
Thanks, Aaron. I'll wait until maybe we see some other questions from our attendees. If not, I do have a couple I was inspired to ask, but I'd like to give our attendees the first run if they'd like.
I hope they have some. I wasn't that good.
Okay, well, maybe I'll jump in then. Hearing none at this point, maybe we'll inspire people with some questions. I think you kind of addressed this, Rick, but I'm just kind of wondering in terms of getting started with supply chain, and kind of like you said, the owner operator is everything. Chief cook and bottle washer, and they do the sales, they do the books, they do the marketing, etc. And I think they do reach a point when they can start hiring people to do that. Is that kind of the same approach that you think they would need to take for supply chain kind of responsibilities?
Well, yeah, they probably have somebody that's performing the function to a degree within the organization, but it's probably also being limited by having to do some other things. More often than not, it's usually somebody cuts purchase orders, it might be finance that does it, or they don't really put a lot of thought into what they're buying or how or those things. They're performing a task. or they're on the other side where they're receiving goods and they're looking at it, but nobody's actually really taking a look at what's the demand, right? What is my product demand and how do I use my suppliers to help meet that demand better? How do I analyze, like, how do I buy better? Should I be buying more? Should I be buying less more often? And how do I minimize those freight costs or some of those other things? Or how do I change the way I'm acquiring these goods that improves my cash flow, reduces my cost, those things. But so it really comes down to the shifting from more tactical to, you know, more strategic with tactile, acting
Okay.
strategically, thinking strategically, acting tactically kind of scenario. And it's giving those people the ability to go analyze and make decisions on your behalf, because there's many that happen every day. And as companies are growing, especially small, mediums they're growing quickly, you need to have people that can jump on those opportunities, recognize an opportunity and go take advantage of it rather than having to go ask permission all the time.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Awesome. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking at
Yeah, I have it up on
talking
the
behind
screen.
the scenes here.
But I will say, and that is, and I'll reemphasize, the biggest step is it's a real eye opener for people. They don't always know, they think they got a handle on, but it's amazing at how much they learn when they actually map their process. And
Yeah.
just even within their fourth walls, what's actually happening from the point that order arrives to the point it's leaving the door, and the amount of steps and things that are happening that, what they think's going on, what's really going on is usually quite surprising to most people. And
Yeah.
it's enlightening. And the nice thing is that, once you make it visual, everybody can work from the same page. And it
Yeah.
allows for better decision making, and it improves that communication that I talked about. And it gets to better results because all of a sudden everybody's frame of reference is the same. And you get these diverse, thoughts coming from different disciplines, like how finance thinks or ops or this and that. But at the end of the day, you have that idea, all those ideas, and you land on some, but somebody's got to go execute. And, and especially if it involves outside involvement, then you need to have somebody that's going to be that. And again, as a principal, you don't always have time for that when you're trying to go out and do other things. You're trying to find new sales. You don't necessarily have
Yeah.
time to go, be negotiating with, a key supplier on adjusting it, an order size or package sizing or quality or whatever it happens to be. So that's really what it is. It's about, getting somebody to manage those things and to be in touch. It's not set and forget it. It's about
Yeah.
having somebody that understands what the company needs, but can go execute with that authority on a regular basis.
Absolutely. That reminds me, just in terms of like you had excellent examples about looking inwards. So I'm guessing that's probably some advice you're wanting to impart, just insofar as, before you start calling up your vendors and hitting them up for deals or whatever, is you got to look inwards and say, well, what opportunities do I have in my own house where I
Yeah,
can, cut some costs, and right.
well, that's probably, and thanks for that. That's one of the smartest things you do. You don't go running out to go ask for help before you know what you need help with. And so
Yeah.
what the goal is that you want to start internally within your four walls first. You want to look at what's going on. How do I optimize what's going on within my four walls? How do I make sure that I'm not wasting time, money, and energy on getting through this? And then the question becomes, I still have this problem here and I can't solve it myself, which is then when you go, that's when you start engaging those key suppliers. How can my supplier help me? Like an example, I'll use an example from when we were doing noise control. We used lots of insulation to build noise control solutions for power generating stations, great big boxes. And we used to bring it in by the truckload. We bought it from the factory direct by the truckload. The problem is that we used to bring that truckload in and it would take the better part of half a day to unload the truck. We'd drive it right through the middle of production to get it to a mezzanine at the opposite end of the building. And we'd have to put it up on the mezzanine. But then when somebody on the floor at the station needed installation, you have to leave a station, walk to the corner, climb the ladder, get the installation down to chute, climb back down, go back to his station. The whole time he's doing
Oh, wow.
that, he's not building the panel. And so what we wanted to do was we wanted to say, well, don't want to come by, we don't want to come truckload. We want it to come in smaller amounts that go right to the worker station.
Right.
But the problem is if we bring it in that, how do I get my truckload price? Right? So my costs are going up if I do that. So we actually negotiated a deal because it was with, we went to the manufacturer and we said, we want to work with your distributors locally because there was two of them because we use two kinds of insulation. One was commercial, one was residential. I said, we want to make a deal where you're going to reduce your price to them so that they can sell to me at the truckload price to deliver to the point of use and the quantities we need.
Yeah.
And so we
that's
negotiated that so that it kept my price and it had this retail, the distributors delivering in quantities as needed on a Kanban card where they delivered it right to that worker station where the worker didn't have to go anywhere. The worker
Yeah.
it just came in, it got pallet jacked in and the worker just could keep working. So his time on task, the stuff that actually added value to the customer was maximized and he wasn't going
Yeah.
back and forth. And we didn't have the safety issues with moving forklifts of stuff through the station. So, but it was a supply chain solution about the movement of goods that
Yeah.
protected our margin, but improved our efficiency at the same time.
Absolutely.
So that's the kind of look that we're talking about. Like it's supply chain management, as I said, it's not about tactically cutting a PO. PO is what you do at the end once you figured out what you need.
Yeah.
It's figuring out what we actually need to be as good as we can be. And the only way you start on that is make it visual, understand the problem, deal with it, rinse and repeat constantly. And if you do that, you're going to find that you're going to be more profitable and successful.
Absolutely. I think it's also noteworthy to say that you accomplished that by continuing to work with your channel partners. Typically, a truckload situation or something like that involves, cutting your channel partners out because that's where there's typically cost savings, right? So that's I think that's noteworthy just insofar as keeping those channel partners on your team and on your side. I think that's a big deal.
Well, it makes a difference on it. It's part of that decision is when do you go one way or another? When do you stay with somebody local? When do you go big? Like it depends. Sometimes it makes sense to pay a little more for the value that you happen to get. But that's part of the analysis that you need to do on a regular basis. And every business is different in some ways. There's similarities, but they're different. But and it may change from time to time. You might be good for now, but a year from now, it might be something entirely different. So that's why the constant analysis and measurement and somebody on it all the time is critical because your business changes, the market you're in changes, your competition changes. And so you have to be in that constant state of change and your supply chain has to be nimble enough to be able to adjust to that for you to remain competitive. So hence, as why we're talking about this, why you want to have, somebody that's there. And hopefully as we move forward, here, as we do some more things, we'll be able to help some of your organizations, some of the companies that you're working with, make that adjustment, start making that shift to allow them to get on this path. Because once you're on it's very easy to maintain. It just becomes, consistency and, and just diligence.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do have, can I interrupt
Go ahead.
your conversation just for a second? There are a couple questions.
Oh, fantastic. I'll let you go with that.
Okay. So you spoke about weak links in your supply chain management process. What types of things should I be looking for both internally and externally as weak links?
Well, it depends on, it could be anything. The weak link could be, you really need to root cause. Like you take a look at where where am I not getting the result I expect? And yeah, and a good process to go through is 5 whys, So why is this, not coming out what I want? Well, because, the equipment's not doing this. Well, why is the equipment doing that? Well, because somebody didn't do this. Well, why didn't they do that? So you need to really root cause what the problem is, and that becomes talking to lots of people. But really it comes back to, um, the weak link is the root cause analysis. I'm not producing enough. I'm supposed to be producing 1,000 an hour. I'm producing 950. Why am I at 950? And then you keep following it back until you find out what's causing it. And it might be we didn't order enough, or the quality is bad and so they have to spend extra time reworking something to go forward. So it's taking me an extra 20 minutes, or it's somebody isn't trained on the equipment and they can't go through fast enough, or it's a community, like there's a whole bunch of things. So it's really a lot of, and again, this is why you need somebody that is responsible, because they have to actually go back and follow through to go root cause. Where is the source of the problem? Because the worst thing you can do, and what a lot of companies do, is they try to fix the symptom rather than the problem itself. And so you need to go, where am I not getting a result? And now you follow it backwards to find out what it is, what's causing me not to get my result. And that's the weak link. And once you identify what it is, what are my options? What do I need to do? Is it internal training? Is it a better piece of equipment? Is it better quality product? Is it my forecasting was wrong? Did my production controls put it in the wrong order? Did my supplier send me the wrong thing? Did they substitute without telling me? Was it order short? Like it could be a multitude of things. But then when you identify what it is, okay, now I know what the source is. What are my steps to make sure, number one, I correct it immediately so I can get back to normal as quickly? But how do I take steps to make sure it doesn't happen again? How do I error proof my process on that so that I don't have it, I don't have to come back and revisit it? And then I analyze again, okay, where am I not getting the best result? And you go back. It's part of what we do, and part of what we'll be talking about as we go forward in other sessions is we will have an assessment tool that's going to help do this. That's going to be available to people that we'll be talking about. But really, it's about somebody needs to start. You start with the poor result and you work backwards and root cause why you're not getting it. And that's where you're going to start finding your weak links. But as soon as you do it and you analyze again, okay, why are we still not getting it? And then you go find the next thing. It's just a constant, you just rinse and repeat over and over again. And at some point, you will lean out, you'll be pretty good at it. And it'll become next steps on innovation or technology that will start the process all over again.
Okay. And then that leads right into the next question of how can a company get started with supply chain management if they don't have a supply chain management expert yet?
Probably the easiest way would be, there's people that are performing some of the tasks, but probably the first step would be to identify who's going to have some responsibility for it. Because as I said, there's people that might cut purchase orders. Somebody might do, some of the MRO items. Somebody might be buying the main raw materials, which is not the same person. Somebody might be doing the maintenance stuff. Somebody might be, doing the shipping and handling. Like again, we have it kind of all over the place. You do need to consolidate is who's accountable, for that role. And then the question becomes well, they may not have the experience of that, but then, okay, well, what do we need to do to help get them up to speed so that they can take responsibility for these things? How can we make sure they can start coordinating these efforts? So that's probably the first step, is identifying who's going to be accountable, right? Who's in the best position right now to be accountable to help make sure that these things start to come together. And then it's partly things, as I said, on the 20th, when we're getting into our competency tool, we can start figuring out how we can help, Supply Chain Canada can help identify where we can help that individual or individuals, if there's more than one, help them start to get, the skills to be able to start to get those results and start to get the training to be able to do those things. But that's the first step, is a commitment that we need somebody to bring this together, not have it all over the place, but somebody that's going to help coordinate the effort of all these things and bring some order to chaos. I hope that answers the question.
Perfect. Yeah. I'll get Jeff back on. I think that's all we have time for.
Yeah, absolutely. Rick, thank you so much. This has been an awesome session. Every time we talk, every time I hear you speak, I'm learning more stuff. I'm getting more inspired, and I'm really excited to, see what else we're going to be offering to our clients. In the course of our exploration into more supply chain management skills and things that Supply Chain Canada has to offer. So we have another webinar next week. It's going to be on Tuesday, January 21st, starting at noon again. And it's going to be presented by Dylan Bartlett, President and CEO of Supply Chain Canada's national office. He's going to be telling us about their proprietary competency benchmarking tool, or CBT. And what this tool is something that we'll be sharing with you to identify strengths, analyze skill gaps, and find where you stand in the supply chain industry. It's going to allow you to benchmark yourself against supply chain practitioners in similar roles and sectors. So that'll be interesting. And you will be provided access to this resource that you can take it yourself, or if you have employees that you are interested to know if they have any sort of propensity or interest in supply chain things. You never know what kind of skills you have until you ask, right? So you can use it for that. The week after next week's webinar, you are invited to attend Manitoba Agriculture's Supply Chain Focus Group, which is being held in person at the Headingley Community Center on Portage Avenue. That's going to be in the morning of January 28th. If you can't make it in person, we will also be offering a virtual version on Wednesday, January 29th, also in the morning. The purpose of the Supply Chain Focus Group is to give you an opportunity to share your supply chain challenges and for the group to brainstorm together to offer potential solutions or next steps. We're also interested in learning whether you think there's a role for government in assisting in some fashion with your supply chain challenges and potential solutions. Just finally, in closing, a recording of today's webinar will be available, so that will be sent out to you. And we thank everyone who participated today. And again, thank you, Rick, for so much great information. Everyone have a great day, and thanks again.
Thank you, Rob.